to KSRM Sound Off, candidate for Alaska's governor in 2026, Bernadette Wilson. Good morning, Ms. Wilson, and welcome back to Sound Off.
Good morning, Dwayne. It's great to be with you. You know, I wake up every morning, I think, yes, God gave me another day. Here we go. I feel the same way.
That's a beautiful thing. It is indeed. Bernadette, we're going to keep you for, Ms. Wilson, we're going to keep you for a segment. And yesterday you put out a presser. CJ, your campaign manager, reached out to us and said, hey, can we get some airtime? I said, absolutely correct. What shot did you fire yesterday?
Dwayne, we announced yesterday, and for people that have been following, they know that I have said from the beginning of this campaign that if I were not the top Republican vote getter in the August 2026 primary, I will step aside, I will withdraw my name, and I will support whomever Republicans nominate as their primary, nominee headed into the November 2026 election. What we did yesterday was we put that commitment into writing. We issued a letter to every other Republican gubernatorial candidate in this race and asked them to make the same pledge. My view is this, Dwayne. I do not support ranked choice voting. It was devised to defeat us. It was devised to disenfranchise voters, especially conservative voters, and I'm not going to let it happen on my watch. I think it's very important that we recognize ranked choice voting is going to be the law of the land in November 2026. However, the only way that it will defeat us is if we allow it to defeat us. We got a lot of track left in this race, a lot. We have 11 months till a primary. This race is anybody's game, okay? We don't even have reports that come out till February. We'll start having, I'm sure, debates and everything come next spring. There's a lot of track. It's anyone's game. But I think what's very important is that at the outset of the game, before you get going, you establish what the rules are. And I think that we need to be very clear, and we need to send a message to the electorate. Well, I'm going to support, for me personally, I'm going to support whoever the electorate puts forward. Personally, I am tired of the electorate being told that they are too dumb to understand what's going on in the legislature, that there is some strategy that they just can't understand. And if you only understood what else is going on, then you would get it. Here's the reality. There is no secret strategy with ranked choice voting. And I am not going to look at voters and tell them that you made the wrong choice or you just simply don't understand how this works. Let me tell you. I'm not going to do that. I don't have the audacity to do that. I think the future of Alaska is greater than any one single candidate in this race.
Okay, so remind me, help me out for just a minute. When we're going to roll the hands of time forward. It's the August primary. Let's lock in the candidates that we have today. No speculation, just those that have declared. I think the count is 11.
11, you're correct.
I'm going to go to my voting precinct, and I'm going to vote for one team. It'll be a governor and a lieutenant governor team on the ballot. We'll come back to that for you in a minute. Then the Division of Elections will tally the votes. They will lock the votes, and then they will say these are the top 4 candidates. Right? So far, so good?
Correct. So far, so good. You got it.
One vote, the top 4 advance. Now,
correct.
Right now, there is one member of the Democratic Party and I think 10 with the Republican Party label. If you and everybody that belongs to the red team follow what you're asking for, what would the November ballot look like?
Well, it would look like one Republican. I would assume one Democrat. I think you would agree with me. It's probably safe to say that the Democrats will get at least one candidate going forward, right? And hopefully what that does is it forces up your 5th and your 6th place person, assuming how far down the ballot you end up going. Hopefully it forces that 5th and 6th place person. If they're Republicans, they would get out, and then it would take the 7th and the 8th. And you would essentially keep going down the line. And the hope is that you keep going down the line and you start pulling up. You get far enough down the line that you start pulling up Democrats, or you start pulling up independents who could be spoilers for the Democrats. Now, you remember this happened in 2024. If you want to go back before we go forward, you can go back to 2024. Nick Begich, Nancy Dahlstrom, Mary Peltola. Nancy Dahlstrom withdraws. You remember the Democrats had a fit over her withdrawing. What it did was it took the next people that were in line, so to speak, and it bumped them up to the ballot. The Democrats were quite upset. They were suing over it. There was a whole kerfuffle over it, them being upset. The reason they were upset is because they know that when you pull somebody from that low down on the ballot up, when you start pulling up the fifth place person or the sixth place person, they don't stand a shot in winning, but if they can pull off a 0.5% or 1% from the Democrats, it's just enough that it can cost them the election. We saw that with Nick Begich and Mary Peltola. Nick won, but you remember it was by barely 51%, right? If I recall correctly. I don't have that number in front of me. I served as senior advisor on Nick. I'm pretty certain that when it was all said and done, that's right about where we landed. Now, could you imagine had we not done that? And I've had some Republicans say, well, yeah, but what about who's in fifth place? Then it gives the spot to the Democrats.
Right. What
we know is that it doesn't matter. That's why the Democrats were freaking out about that in 2024. It gave just enough of a spoiler to them. You want to hope that you're pulling up a Democrat. You want to hope that you're pulling up the dude that's over in prison or whatever it is, right? They'll pull up just enough. And for those who don't know that reference, that's because, remember, one of the candidates that got bumped up was a gentleman that was in prison.
Right.
But the reality is Republicans who are saying, oh, but there could be a strategy here. There could be another strategy. No, there's not. There's a reason the Democrats put forward one strong candidate. There's a reason that they were upset and they sued in 2024. And there's a very strong reason that Nick Begich won. So I would encourage people, let's study our history. Let's not be duped, and let's recognize among all the candidates, Dwayne, among all the candidates, this is not, because I've had some people ask me, well, why so early? Why are you making this call so early? Dwayne, the reason I'm making that call early is because even I know, as one of the candidates, I know this is anybody's game. There's a lot of track left for any candidate to come in the beginning of August or July of next year and say, well, now I think everybody should drop out. That's a little disingenuous. Now they're going to start making calls based off of how they think they're doing or they're not doing. You have so much track left. This is very easy for people, should be easy for people to commit to the greater good and commit towards, yes, let's have some unity. Let's pull as one team, whoever the electorate chooses as their candidate. We need to respect that choice and move forward. And like I said, there's a lot of track left. It could be anybody. But it's important that you establish the rules for the game right at the outset and not when you're halfway through the game.
It's an interesting concept. It truly is. Like you, I am steadfastly opposed to ranked choice voting. I do not know what the percentage, the final percentage in the Nick NB3 race was, but I don't care about it because it was a jimmied up number. What I do know is he got more people to vote for him than she got to vote for her. So that's this whole 50% nonsense is nothing but voodoo math. All right. Mm-hmm. But as far as the primary goes, would you consider this? And I'm going to go out on a limb and say you're one of my favorite Republicans, and I don't have very many favorite Republicans. You guys did this to yourself. Your party did this to yourself. Your party created what is the jungle primary today with your, not necessarily Bernadette Wilson, but the Alaska Republican Party, when you wanted to have the state of Alaska pay for your election. If the Republican Party would have listened to me, and if the Republican Party would have said, we've got 10 candidates, they're all great, and we're going to decide amongst ourselves who we want to put in the November ballot, we'd be looking at a better candidate. we'd be looking at a better process. Now, you've got a creative workaround, and the idea of dilution. You take 4 candidates, one's a Democrat, 3 is a Republican. Doing the algorithm math, the one has an advantage. And so I get where you're going. I think your heart's in the right spot, but we've got to get rid of ranked choice voting.
Oh, absolutely. And I opposed ranked choice voting the very first time it was on the ballot, Dwayne. I was one of the few Republicans, by the way, in September of that election going, oh my gosh, you guys, does anybody realize this is on the ballot? It came in like a thief in the night. People did not even realize that it was coming at us like a freight train. And there were a few people, I was not involved in that effort. I have a picture of me holding like one of the very first signs, hot off the press. I was not involved in running that effort, but thank God there were a few people who stepped up literally in the 60 days before the election. Were like, oh my gosh. Like I said, it was a thief in the night. I opposed ranked choice voting the last time. I was one of the 3 main sponsors this past November to put it on the ballot again. So I've been a staunch, very vocal opposition, right, that has opposed ranked choice voting from the very outset of it. And I most certainly hope that we repeal it in 2026. If you haven't signed the petition, there's a shameless plug. Go to Repeal Now and sign the petition. So I most certainly hope that we repeal it. And I would be very leery of any Republicans who say, I don't like ranked choice voting, but by the way, I don't think other candidates should get out. That's double speak out of both sides of the mouth. And I would very much challenge that intellectual inconsistency.
Candidate for Alaska State Governor, it's the Wilson Shower team. You're the first one. You know what? I am up against a break. Can I keep you for for one more segment?
Absolutely.
We talked about just having Bernadette for one segment. I want to get into the nuances of a lieutenant governor and a couple other questions. Brent Johnson in studio with us. I'll bet you've got a question for her as well. Bernadette Wilson, candidate for Alaska State Governor. This is KSRM. Hey, Nick, what a beautiful morning it is. Candidate for Alaska's governor. You'll see her name on the ballot in August for sure. We're talking about what may come after that. I want to talk about lieutenant governors for just a moment. I'm going to give you a minute to promote your lieutenant governor, and then I want to talk about the process that brought us to you picking your lieutenant governor instead of me picking your lieutenant governor. Ms. Wilson, on Mike Shower, please.
Yes, Senator Mike Shower has been a strong, staunch conservative. As I looked across the state, I knew that there was no doubt, absolutely no doubt in my mind, that man would stand up next to me, that he was capable of taking the arrows, that he was capable of coming in and saying, you know what, it's time to disrupt the system a little bit. Let's get the job done. And I can think of a couple of things, very, very notably when I was speaking with him. And for those who don't know, of course, he serves in the state Senate. Throughout his years in the Senate, he has served on various different committees. He was a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, still a pilot, just a great guy, him and his beautiful wife, Michelle. I think the world of them. And I can think, Dwayne, of a couple different conversations. We talked extensively before this announcement was made on what does this look like. And there were a couple points that stick out to me especially. And I remember sitting with him and I said, Mike, this may just be a one-term administration. We have to run this as though it's one term. A lot of people go in, they think they've got 8, or they want to be so cautious because they're so worried about a reelection. I said, are you okay? Are you going to be all right knowing that this is very well, quite possibly, just one term? It's 4 years. That's it. Then we got to go back to our lives. He said, absolutely. And another question I asked him is I said, okay, and by the way, think we could actually get election results in a timely manner? And he said, oh, yes, absolutely. So we had a lot of conversations, more than happy to get into why I think he is the best one. When you look at election issues across Alaska, it's an incredibly important topic there. But no doubt in my mind that he is going to get the job done for Alaska, and I'm very excited about it.
All right. Now, that's so thank you for that. Now, let's talk about just process for a second. The reason that you have the ability to select your lieutenant governor is because of the original citizen-led initiative that brought us ranked choice voting. That was the headline. It also brought us the open primary. It also brought us the fact that a candidate selects their lieutenant governor as opposed to me selecting your lieutenant governor. Do you think that part of the original initiative is a good idea, a bad idea, and why, please?
You know, I don't, I personally, I think that the lieutenant governor needs to be held accountable to the people of Alaska. I think that anytime that you have a more direct relationship with your lieutenant governor, when that lieutenant governor knows that they are responsible to the electorate very directly, I think that it's better. You're not going to find a piece of ranked choice voting that I support, Dwayne. Now, in a roundabout way, in a little less of a roundabout way, is that lieutenant governor still accountable to the people? It is, yes. But ultimately, now you're leaving it up to the candidate to say, okay, who is my running mate, and not the public to say, this is the team we feel is the best. You're trying to put that team together, and you're trying to hope that the public agrees with you, right? So I'm a big believer that the public should have as much direct involvement and voice. This is a little bit more convoluted. Again, I totally understand his name is on the ballot. So people tell me, well, we're still voting for him. Well, yes, but not as directly. I hope that I'm making sense with that.
Okay.
But
Bernadette, we are on the clock. Can I ask you to take a question from a caller?
Sure.
George, you're on the air with Bernadette Wilson. Be very quick with your question, point, or comment. Then I'm going to immediately put you back on hold so you can hear her reply. George, go.
Okay. The problem is the Republican Party. You guys just love Trump controls the Republican Party, and Donald Trump is a crazy nut. And you guys vote for him all the way. So the Republican Party is destroying life as we know it. So
okay, you are a Republican. You're a proud Republican. Is George right about any of his comments?
No, in fact, I would go legislation by legislation, George, and I would argue that Donald Trump has done more for the state of Alaska than any previous president Alaska's ever had. Joe Biden issued more sanctions against the state of Alaska than he did the country of Iran during his administration. I'll go right tit for tat right on down the list. Thank God we've got Donald Trump in there, and thank God he's helping turn around Alaska.
9072, I'm not even going to give the phone number. Coming up at the bottom of the hour after our news break, we'll be joined in studio by Jill Schaefer from Governor Michael J. Dunleavy's office. There are now 3 people in this race: Lieutenant Governor Nancy Dahlstrom, former Department of Health Commissioner, former Department of Revenue Commissioner Adam Crum, and former Attorney General Tregarick, call me Treg Taylor. Would you want any one of those 3 in front of, if one of those 3 comes in front of you, are you still okay with backing out?
Absolutely. If that is who the electorate chooses, I do not have the audacity or the arrogance to look at the electorate and tell them, I know better than you.
What about Click Bishop? What about Click Bishop? He's one of the worst Republicans out there when put on a test of the Republican Party platform.
You know, I'm thrilled that you asked me about that. Here's my position.
You've got a minute to give it to us.
Yep. If Click Bishop is not a true Republican, and if Republicans don't feel like he should be able to have an R behind his name, then it is up to the Republican Party, it is up to the SCC, and it's up to those district chairs to make that statement. They need to put out a letter, and it is their job. It is the Republican Party's job to educate voters. If there is a rhino among us, it is up to the party to issue sanctions and statements and educate voters in the event that they share that sentiment with us.
Bold. Bernadette Wilson, thanks for joining with us this morning. You've got a few seconds left to put out some contact and follow-up information, please.
BernadetteForGovernor.com, BernadetteForGovernor.com. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram. We're all over. Bernadette for Governor. Be sure to follow us. A lot of great content. Dwayne, thank you, as always. I appreciate the opportunity.
Candidate for Alaska's governor. You'll see her name on the ballot for sure in August. Bernadette Wilson, thank you. You're welcome here anytime. That's going to wrap up that segment. Brent